Okay, we should be live everywhere by now. Hi, everyone. I am HP Holo. I write things, and I also talk with other people who write things. And today I am here with David Weber and Jacob Holo to talk about their newest book. Is it Weltall File or Weltall File?
Well, it's a German word, so Weltall is.
Okay, it's really kind of pathetic, you guys. I have lived in the same house with Jacob through the entire production of this book, and I still don't know how to pronounce it.
Sharon tries hard not to absorb that kind of information about my books. She's like, okay, yes, I understand. You need to talk about the passage. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I don't have any excuse because I help edit Jacob's books.
But it's written. We were just talking before the broadcast about the difference between, the spoken with the bandwidth and the just plain written word. Okay, blame it on that.
If it makes you feel any better, Heather, even when I try to pronounce it right, I will have German colleagues of mine correct my pronunciation. So
okay, well that makes
me feel I at least think I get the V part correct.
But I always thought it was more like almost a VF, Weltall in there, but what do I know?
I'm just going to pronounce it a bunch of different ways and hope that one of them sounds sort of right.
You could just call it the book.
The book.
The new book. The new just released book.
Yes,
the fantastic new just released book.
Yes, which is a national bestseller already. So congratulations, by the way. I feel weird congratulating also my husband about a book that I'm also benefiting from. But this is it's a weird relationship, you guys. Anyway,
it's accepted.
Anyway, before we get into our questions or my questions, just some notes for the audience. First off, welcome. We are also giving away signed copies of the book. And if you would like to enter to win a copy of the Weltall File, the Weltall File, whatever, look in the description. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, in the event description, you'll find a link for you to click and just fill in all the information there, and that will automatically enter you. If you're watching on Twitter, go find one of the other places because Twitter doesn't come through to Twitter doesn't allow me a description on Restream for some reason. So yes, and I think I think those are all my announcements. So I'm going to put my little banner up, and then we're going to begin. So first off, easy description. What's this book about?
The easy part, huh?
We're 4 books into the series. It should be easy.
Okay, this book is really more in Jacob's ballpark now. These days, now that we've corrupted him and introduced him to police procedurals.
I welcome the corruption.
Yes, it's the dark side of the force. Do you feel the power? Kind of thing. But basically, it's a police procedural set in 2 universes, which are close to one another. They diverged from one another back about the time of World War II. Which is covered in the Gordian Protocol. And if you don't have it, go get it. It's a great book too. Also by me and Jacob. Oh, of course, that's why it's a great book. But in the Weltall File, these 2 very dissimilar universes, which have a lot of reasons to be hostile, but a lot more reasons why they have to learn to live with one another, are dealing with a crime which actually transcends the wall between them. And there's a police officer and a counterterrorism officer acting as a police officer, working the case. So if you've read any of Ed McBain's books, if you've read any good police procedurals, then you'll know what to expect in terms of nature of book going into this. That will not Ed McBain will not prepare you for time travel and little things like that. But presumably you're reading science fiction, you're good for that. But that's what the book is. All right. Now, and Jacob is not only a new convert to the seductive power of the police procedural, he's really the lead author on this book. So, having said my bit about what it is, I yield the floor to Jacob to tell you what's in it.
So, as David mentioned, it's police procedural. We have two leads. One is he's a more traditional detective. He's fairly new, but he's not inexperienced. His name's Isaac Cho, and his superpower is that he's very hardworking, very methodical. He's going to keep on the case until it's solved, and isn't going to stop unless someone drags him away from it. And
or
even
shoots
at that
him.
point, well, yes, there is that. There's certainly that risk.
Yes.
But if his boss tells him, "I need you on another case," he's just going to say, "But I'm not done with this one. I need to keep working on it." And then on the other hand, you have Susan Cantrell, who is her previous interactions with crime and crime fighting was blowing up criminals, primarily terrorists. So she's the one who's had to adjust her approach to her new work environment. They are not just from opposite sides of the tracks, so to speak, but opposite sides of a trans-dimensional divide between universes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they're also, they've been brought together as part of an officer exchange program that started with the book 3, the Janus File. And they initially don't think they're heading off to a new case. They think they are they're being sent to Earth's moon, which is terraformed in this setting, to participate in or basically be part of a goodwill tournament between the two superpowers. One of the star visiting players receives a death threat.
Rather graphic one.
In the form of a copy of her own severed head on a platter with words written in fake blood, "Leave or die."
Death threats in this setting are next level.
Yeah, no. But the criminals got their point across.
And what was it printed out on, Jacob? The severed head. What was it that they hacked to produce this head?
Oh, it was a
3D food printer.
Yes, it was a snack machine that printed out her head.
Yeah, she's just trying to get. She's just got the munchies. She's in a hotel room, and just wants to get a bite to eat before the tournament tomorrow, and she gets a severed head.
This is a completely morbid question, but did you ever think about what the printed head tastes like? Like, what food was it made out of?
It probably would have tasted like whatever it was she'd ordered, though eating it would have been,
Every time I read a book, I have food questions about it. Like, if there can't even be food in the scene, and I'll find a food question to ask.
Well, one thing that needs to be pointed out is that not only are Susan and Isaac from different universes, but both of these universes have had near-miss extinction events that are technology related. In the case of SysGov, which is where Isaac comes from, it was runaway nanotech that ate a swatch across China, turning it into pinballs. And Jacob asked me if he could, and I told him yes, he could. The guy who stopped that is known in history as the Pinball Wizard. The admin's event was Rogue AI, a military AI that they basically had to nuke all of China to deal with. For some reason, that portion of Asia got special loving attention in both universes. But
I have no idea why I did that.
But it means that there are some very significant different legal and social attitudes. In SysGov, artificial persons, including they can have been organic and transitioned. They can be transitioned to a synthoid body. They can transition into a purely electronic person. They're citizens just like anybody else. In admin, there are no free AIs. Any AIs have to be boxed. It's almost like they're air gapped away from the system with all kinds of inhibitory protocols to keep them from getting out of the box. So a lot of people in SysGov are like, you awful, barbaric, horrible, nasty people. You would exterminate me if you got the chance. And a lot of people in admin are like, you guys are freaking lunatics. Yeah, they have different attitudes towards nanotech too, which is interesting because even though SysGov is the one that nearly wiped itself out with nanotech, it uses, I think, a lot more nanotech than the admin does.
Yes.
But
except for the weaponized nanotech that the admin used to use.
Use, but that kind of got a little out of hand, so we stopped doing it.
The contrasts are some of my favorite things about the series. Like, you guys know me, I love really good world building details, and I just love seeing how those kinds of conflicts manifest in each one. And I love the little conflicting details. And I was going somewhere with this, but I completely forgot where. So I'm just gonna
welcome to my world. I've been doing that a lot lately. I think when we set out to build the original. To do the original world building for the Gordian Protocol, I basically said to myself, well, I'm a historian. I'm working with an engineer. I got a wirehead here. Hey, wirehead, go build the technology. And Jacob went and built a humdinger of a tech set for both.
I dove right in.
Yeah.
Right into
He was kind of like, if I get too carried away, Dave will haul me out again. And he comes, okay, here's what I did. What do you want me to change? I'm like, I don't think, and he's like, what? Kind of thing. But one of the things that is both of us going forward, in some ways, especially in the file books, more Jacob than me, because he's definitely the lead writer on those. It's just so much in his wheelhouse that it's kind of like, you go, kind of thing.
Is Weltall the one where Jacob wrote the first draft and then you changed like 2 words? Is this? I know there's one draft where you didn't have that many changes to make at all, David.
I didn't have that many to make in the Janus file. I think I made half a dozen in that one. They were all stylistic. I mean, there was nothing. There are a couple of word choices that Jacob likes that I think should be eradicated from his vocabulary. So I would speak to him about those.
Oh, I want to know which ones.
No.
Harass him about them.
No. This is between me and Jacob. If he wants to tell you, pillow talk is one thing, But anyway, in the Weltall file, I think I changed one verb. And
really?
that was pretty much it.
Well, I mean, when David tells me not to do something, I try not to do it in future manuscripts. I don't always succeed, but I do try. I mean, as you said,
the thing, Jacob, you're okay. You don't make the same mistake twice very often, and when you do, it's in the small stuff. Okay, the big stuff you get nailed. Okay, I see why that is. Okay, especially in the context of this universe, etc. And boom, I don't have to worry about that. And trust me, I would much rather have to worry about the occasional little thing that creeps through. Well, and that and keeping you from killing universes.
Yes.
Okay, I mean,
we have discussed many times my universe destroying diet. Yes.
Well, but the problem is he does it very well. You understand? It's just there are some skills best held in reserve.
Did you destroy a universe in the one you just finished, Jacob?
Readers are going to have to find out.
Okay.
Ooh.
I haven't even read it yet.
Yeah.
To clarify what Heather and I are talking about, I just finished the first run through of Gordian Division 6, the Thermopylae Protocol. And I've got a bunch of editing to do before I hand the manuscript over to David, but I'm pretty darn happy with how that one is shaping up.
And basically, there are two threads in the well, I guess call it the Gordian universe, the Gordian
multiverse.
Okay. See, I can't call it multiverse because that's what I'm doing with Hell's Gate. So
Oh, that's
kind
true.
of like
Yeah, that could be confusing.
Anyway, the books that have protocol in the title are dealing with sort of existential level threats. The threats that are so big and so nasty that the two universes involved have to get together and basically sign a protocol that says, no, we won't do that anymore. We won't let anybody else do that anymore. No, 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 no. We dodged the bullet this time, etc. Okay. The file books, which in some ways give you a much better look into the structure of the two universes involved, will be pretty much all police procedurals. So this is going to be like the case file for the Weltall game and the case file for, when I had the original concept for these novels literally back in like 1991 when I pitched this along with Honor Harrington to Jim Bain, and he picked Honor Harrington, which I can't complain about. It
was a good choice. It was a good choice. He had good instincts.
but so this has been kind of nudging around in the back of my brain for a long, long time. And I had always visualized there being a sort of a law enforcement component in the two time traveling, for want of a better term, navies that are involved here. They're not navies in the sense of, patrolling the commerce lanes and so forth, but in terms of the ships that you send out to deal with threats and that kind of thing. And so I'd visualize them having sort of a fused function, and most of the police function being related to things that could have destroyed universes or led to all kinds of problems, or trans-dimensional slavers, that kind of thing. Okay. That's what I had in mind originally. And what really changed the mix more than anything else was Tony Weisskopf, who looked at the first draft of our first file novel and said, this isn't really working for me. And so we gave Jacob some books.
Ed McBain's 87th Precinct novels.
Jacob.
Oh, so good. So
yeah.
How many of those have you read at this point, Jacob? Because I know there's a pile.
Yeah.
What was that?
How many have you read at this point? Because I know there's a pile.
12 or 13, I think.
Yep.
Nice.
McBain is great. Okay.
Oh yeah, and so I mean, when David and I submitted the proposal for what would eventually become the Janus file, the feedback from Tony was, this doesn't feel like a police procedural. This is more a thriller. Go read Ed McBain. And my initial thought is like, I don't think it being a thriller is a problem, but okay. And I do my homework and I start reading, the first 87th Precinct novel. I believe it's called Cop Hater, and which is a great book, great start to the series. And almost immediately it's like, aha, I get it. I understand what Tony wants.
Yeah.
And
it was fortuitous that Tony raised that point, because Jacob and I hadn't been thinking of them as procedurals, but Tony thought we had.
Ah.
Okay. And so she looked at it. She said, "No, this is not what you told me you were going to write." And I'm like, "Well, yes, it is." And she said, "Well, it's not what you should be writing." I said, "Okay."
It was fortunate in more ways than one, too, because now Jacob has a new favorite genre he likes writing.
Well, I mean, I've found that okay, so I half joke about my writing style. What I do is not actually writing. I design novels and then I construct them, and I only half joke about that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of planning that goes into it. I mean, every author's writing process is going to be different, and I tend to work best when I do a lot of pre-planning. I like to work with very well-structured outlines. And that works, that fits in very well with writing police procedurals, because you start with the crime, you construct the crime, you then construct, okay, how is the crime going to be solved? And then from there, it kind of outlines itself. And it's like, oh man, this is great. And then like one of the pieces of feedback from Tony for the Janus file, which is also relevant for Weltall, she said you need another you need at least one more dead end to frustrate our detectives. And I'm like, this is awesome. I can have a whole bunch of scenes that go nowhere, and this is a feature, not a bug. This is great.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, like Jacob says, every writer builds his stories differently. And partly it's because I think every writer builds the world in which his story is set differently. But Jacob is right. This is absolutely in his wheelhouse for the way that he likes to build his universes out from where he starts and where he winds up. I tend to come at it as a historian from a different perspective. And I tend to build the universe and then say, what's the start point of my story? What's the end point of my story? And build it as I go along. Okay. Whereas Jacob has a plan that he's following and I'm like, well, what planet are you from? Can people really write that way? Kind of thing. And actually, he can write very well that way. I've
worked
that,
with the plan is like 100% locked in. If I'm writing and I feel that, okay, I need to make an adjustment here because like the next scene, isn't working or something doesn't feel right, I will edit the outline. I'll sit down and say, okay, how do I solve this? And then I'll proceed. Go ahead, David.
Well, and then there are the evenings when he comes over and he sits in the big blue chair in my office with his laptop, and we discuss it. And we're halfway through. I go, wait, no, ooh, shiny, no, wait. He's like, okay.
And I'm just typing as fast as I can just to record just the stream of conscience coming from David. It's all good stuff. I mean, it's David Weber. What do you expect?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just like, I'm just trying to keep up. And then,
he's almost caught up, and I go, no, let's go somewhere else.
and then at the end of one of those sessions, I'm like, okay, David, I'm going to need some time alone with this because some of these points are contradictory. I'll let you know what I come up with. And then I'll later that week, I'll send him an email. It's like, I was able to incorporate 70% of your ideas. Let me know what you think.
In a good writing partnership, okay, there's a lot of synergistic elements. Okay. And Jacob and I like each other a great deal. We come from very different backgrounds in terms of how we approach what goes into a story. I'm the historian. I think in terms of history and politics and that kind of stuff. Jacob thinks in terms of the tools of the society and what the tools imply for the society. So when when we were doing the Gordian Protocol, I told him, in essence, this is what I need one society to do. This is what I need the other society to do in terms of why they're in conflict instead of working together to solve this problem. And this is what I need the technology, the core technology for the time travel. This is what I need it to accomplish. These are the limitations that I need on it. And so he went and he went through 2 or 3 that you presented to me, iterations of how you visualized the time travel working.
I can interrupt for a second because our chat is blowing up. So I just want to say hi to Julian and Richie. And let's see, there's a bunch of comments going on here. And Lisa and Reese and Oliver, we got a whole bunch of people watching. We also have a question or two. But we also have, I think this comment was actually based upon the timestamp. I think it was actually left before we started on YouTube. But for anyone who is pondering whether you should buy this book or not, John on YouTube says, I greatly enjoyed this read. It checks all the boxes. Good characters, story, great world building, already established but nicely expanded here, and great wordsmithing. So, John, if you're watching, thank you.
Yes, the check's in the mail.
And I agree with him. I know, Jacob, I know you say the Janus file is your best work, but the Weltall file is my favorite. And it actually leads me into a question from, let
me throw one thing in. The reason that Jacob thinks the Janus file is his best work is you only get to discover one kind of a particular kind of story once, whether it's as a reader or as a writer. Okay, and he had so much fun once he got loose in the Janus file and whatnot. I'm not a bit surprised that he likes that one better, even though in a blind taste test, it would be really, really hard to pick between these two for which is the better book. And one of the things about them is that they're not identical. They're not. They go different places.
Oh yeah. And I fully admit I'm biased toward Weltall because I love the gaming tournament angle. And that actually leads us into Richard's question, which is why a game tournament? And so, Jacob?
All right. So this actually starts way back with the Gordian protocol. So Dave and I, we were in the middle of the content edits. Mm-hmm. And one of the points of feedback what dealt with Reibert's character change. So in that book, he loses his old body and he gets a new one.
If you've ever heard Brad Paisley's song Online, Reibert actually makes the switch that the guy grows another foot, the whole 9 yards. I'm sorry, Jacob. I couldn't help myself.
So initially, Reibert's a fairly small guy, but he ends up in a kind of blonde Conan the Barbarian body, and
Scythoid body.
Yes, yeah. So he's
the ladies in the audience. Thank you for that change, because I quite enjoy when his character shows up in his blonde Conan body.
So, he's super strong, super durable, essentially immortal. And one of the points that Tony raised was that he should have some difficulty adjusting to, the size change, that he's so much larger in stature. There should be at least some sort of learning curve going on.
Not just larger in stature, in terms of physical strength, in terms of every aspect of his body.
So I'm like, challenge accepted. and so I came up with essentially a fully immersive game for Reibert and his AI companion Philo, Philosophus. It's sort of a sci-fi version of D&D. And so Reibert plays a very large character in that game. And so he kind of applies that experience, even though it is virtual, to his new body. Mm-hmm. Now, even before that, in the original draft, already had some signs that the admin, some of them were avid gamers. one in particular, his introduction, he's playing a game at work.
Yes, on office time.
Yeah,
yes,
he's playing a game on office time.
I've forgotten about that scene.
Yeah,
actually.
but he's the
Right.
boss's kid, so he get away with it.
Yeah, basically. So you had that kind of initial foundation, and then it wasn't really like all that relevant in the Valkyrie protocol, even though it did show up as.
It was very relevant at the end of the Valkyrie protocol. Okay, not to the Valkyrie protocol story, but to the universe, because that was the point at which we really saw Jonas kind of opening that door, because he's the admin, the son of the commander of the admin's militarized time traveling force. He's the one who was gaming on office time. That iteration of him was killed, though, so that's okay. He paid for it. But anyway, he recognizes that the gamers are actually a bridge between these two universes. And that, I think, was one of the neatest things. And it grew naturally out of who he was in the first book. But Jacob, when he was doing the first draft of the Valkyrie protocol, kind of brought it up another notch. And that led directly into what's going on in this book.
So then to continue, you have the Jonas is kind of manipulating in the Janus file. He's sort of manipulating how the officer exchange program is going to go down, and he essentially makes sure that the two people that end up being paired are both avid gamers. So both Isaac and Susan are big into gaming, and he kind of like David said, he recognizes this as a point of commonality between their two societies, even though there's all sorts of stuff where they they clash. This is a point of common ground. And so then you have naturally going from that, it's like, hey, we're going to have this big trans-universal goodwill gaming tournament, which then criminals just have to ruin.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. This is why we can't have nice things. I mean,
So that is why a gaming tournament. Also, I love games. So, and no one's, I've been, adding these, sort of, gamer elements to the Gordian Division books for a while now, and no one's told me to stop. So
you're going to have to tell us. My next question is going to be for you to tell us about all the Easter eggs that were hidden in this novel, because there's a lot of gaming Easter eggs.
There are a lot, but they're subtle. They're really subtle.
That's why I'm bringing them up now, so they can be made obvious.
Don't tell them, Jacob. Don't tell them. They have to read the book to find it. Now, Jacob is the gamer in our partnership. I was an avid gamer back in that antediluvian age when you did it by moving miniatures on tabletops, and you had like boards with counters on them and so forth. I never really, by the time I would have been getting into video games, I was writing full time, and I was so buried in what I was doing. Now, I will say that when I was an avid D&D player for forever, except they wouldn't let me play the game. They made me run the universe. Because I was that irritating person who remembered all the potions stowed in another character's bag of holding. I mean, kind of thing. And oh, shut up, Weber. Yeah. So they made me run the universe. And I think that's not bad training if you want to write. But I think that a lot of the best game universe designers are storytellers at heart. Okay, and that's why they design what they design. Um, and I've just been sort of sitting back and going, okay, Jacob, go, with the gaming stuff, because I'm sure that I would miss the vast majority of his subtle Easter eggs if he didn't say, "Well, this is an Easter egg, Dave," kind of thing. But I've always buried Easter eggs in my writing. They've tended to be military history or diplomatic history or something like that. So how could I complain? I mean, one of the things that I found over the years is that readers love Easter eggs as
Oh,
long
yeah.
as they're not too blatant. The going on saying, "I saw what you did there. I saw what you did there." That most of them enjoy that, as long as the Easter eggs don't make what you're producing derivative.
Mhm.
Okay, that they won't forgive you for, and rightfully so. But I've never, trust me, I've never worried about that with Jacob. That I've worked with a lot of newer, younger writers over my unfortunately extensive career. Some are faster learners than others. Some are better storytellers than others. On an all-round scorecard, okay, I would have to say that Jacob may be the most rounded of the collaborators that I've worked with. Okay, he's not quite as good in a couple of small areas. He's just better than almost anybody else. Okay, but the complete Jacob, the way that he approaches the craft, the way that he crafts dialogue, the way that he builds characters, it's all really, really good. Um, and I've been very pleased with the way these books have progressed. And you can see now. You see Jacob. I can't tell if he's blushing. I, I keep trying to make him blush, but it's kind of.
We need to get you better lighting in your office, Jacob. So
Yeah, yeah. I was
fancy lights
I
up.
was staring at my image and thinking that main because you have really good lighting in your office, but I think this overhead lighting is not particularly flattering.
Yeah,
So
we need to.
my
we gotta
lighting
do
is a virtual background, so
some better lights
you don't even
somewhere
want to
in the
know what
house.
my
We need to
office
do it.
looks like without this. No.
Oh, we've had a few more people join. So, John made it. Hey, John. And then Dave. And then, it's Roey B. Hey, I know you. And then Robert. Oh, Robert's got a question for us. And then I have no idea who Turbo Turtle is, but I love your username. But we have a good question from Robert, who asks, if you haven't already said so, which of you would be admin as historian meets engineer in your dual universes?
All right,
So
I
who'd be
guess
SysPol and who'd
I
be
guess, I
admin?
guess I'll, if you don't mind, Dave, I'll go first with
Yeah.
this one. So back when we were working on kind of just building the foundation for the Gordian protocol before we went into the writing, we sort of split some of the world building tasks. Like David said, I was doing a lot of the the technical stuff, developing the 30th Century Society, SysGov, and the admin. David was doing, the alternate history, and we were also splitting off character designs. And so David did, a fair number of the characters, and he did Saba Shigeki, who is he's in charge of the admin's Department of Temporal Investigation. And then I took David's the outline that he did, the story outline, And I was kind of building on top of that, and I was kind of looking at the roles that I need to fill. And so there were a number of admin roles. And so I actually there's a not to segue within a segue here, but
go ahead.
But while I was creating those characters, Heather and I were involved in a Pathfinder gaming group.
Oh yeah.
And so I went to them and it's like, hey guys, I need a bunch of names to
That's
put
where
in.
they came from.
And
Okay.
and it's like, okay, who wants to be in a David Weber novel? And by the way, you're going to be a bad guy, and you probably die a horrible death. And they're all like, me. So and then of course is sort of a little in joke to that. They're the Chronoport's time machines that they're in are part of Pathfinder Squadron. But because I was kind of in there at the, when the basement was put in for the admin, I've got a soft spot for them. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, if I were to be smart about it, I would pick SysGov. But as from the creator side of things, like I said, I got a soft spot for the admin.
I think one of the things that makes the admin more attractive to the storyteller is that its tools are more limited. Okay. And that gives you more scope in a lot of ways for the problems you throw at them and what they have to come up with to solve them. And it's not that SysGov's tech is superior in all ways, but overall, SysGov is technologically superior to admin. Mm-hmm. And partly that's because of the fact that they've had the liberated AIs as a part of their research community and so forth for so long. The SysGov is a post-scarcity economy. And they actually have for want of a better term, currency based on esteem points that actually was Jacob's introduction to it. And they've made the transition. They had some rough patches in their historic past while they're dealing with what happens when you have huge chunks of your labor force thrown out of work. What do you do with the people and so forth? Admin is making that transition now, okay? And so they're dealing with some of the consequences that SysGov has in the rearview mirror at this point. And I think that they have the opportunity to learn from SysGov to kind of navigate some of those potholes. But SysGov, all right, I think maybe the best way to put it in some ways is that the admin is junior to the SysGov in terms of its technological and historical experience. It's just as rich a universe. They've had just as much history. They have just as much stuff going on. But they're playing catch up in so many ways that they're kind of, even in their own eyes, okay, we're the secondary power here. Mm-hmm. SysGov recognizes them, especially after the Valkyrie protocol. Okay, there a lot of the contempt that some of the SysGov military people and so forth had for admin kind of got washed away in that when admin came in and saved SysGov's butt. Which is seriously what happens in that book. And it was SysGov that allowed the problem that almost destroyed both universes again to get loose. Okay, so admin's attitude is,
which led to my diet.
you guys have almost destroyed both of our universes twice now. We haven't even done it once yet. So admin does have a few a few points in its favor. One of the other interesting things to me is, and it was a whole bunch of fun, is that the admin that was the villain in Gordian Protocol no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
It actually was created by a temporal accident, but it was split off from the existing SysGov universe. Okay. And so the Shigeki who sent kill teams out, who said, I don't care that 15 universes are going to die in 10,000 years, I'm going to preserve mine now, no longer exists. But the characters from SysGov who were involved do still exist, and so do the only two survivors from the universe that died,
Mm-hmm.
who are Klaus Wilhelm, Benjamin Schroeder's grandfather. And Benjamin's a really interesting character that we need to see a little bit more of, I think, going forward. But him and Benjamin's wife, they're the only two survivors from the universe that was destroyed. And at one point, Shigeki is like, Klaus Wilhelm was having trouble dealing with this guy who sent back the kill team that murdered his beloved wife and his three daughters, and basic, kind of thing. And Shigeki is, I know that you're upset with me, and it's getting in the way of working. Can I ask what I've done? And Klaus Wilhelm says, oh, you want to know what you've done? And Shigeki says, well, yes. And Klaus Wilhelm gives him Klaus Wilhelm's recorded memories of the moment that his wife and his daughters are killed. And Shigeki knows he's not the guy who gave the order, but he knows that in a lot of ways he is the guy who gave the order. Okay. And it has a very, very profound effect on his relationship with Klaus Wilhelm going forward. And that, to me, that shift. Okay, now, a minor spoiler for anyone who has not yet read the Valkyrie Protocol. There may be 3 of you out there. I'm sure there aren't more. One of the things that book deals with is, how it's like the question, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, is there an actual sound? Okay. What happens when an entire universe exists for 1,000 years and then ceases to exist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens? Did those people never exist at all? Did they live and die? And it's a pretty profound question. And Rybert kind of has the answer to it literally in his hands.
Quite literally.
at the end of the. I really, really like the Valkyrie Protocol for a lot of reasons. If nothing else, it let me go and play in the 5th century. That was fun, kind of thing. But I will tell you, when Jacob did the original rough draft on that book, he wrote the 5th century scenes as well. And that was not too long after I had given myself the concussion down in Atlanta.
Dragon Con, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this is working. And it was working. It was working perfectly from a storytelling perspective. But Tony, when she saw the manuscript, said, I think that the century, stuff needs to be punched up. And that, I think, is a David job.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. That writing project did a lot to kind of get me pulled back up out of the post-concussion stuff. So, I have a particular fondness for those scenes and the characters, the bishop and, all the rest of them from the 5th century. I really enjoyed doing that. But that's part of the partnership. And I think that I think that in the protocol books, Jacob is still doing the first draft, but the protocol books have more of me coming in and doing stuff in them
Mm-hmm.
because there's more history stuff and in there that needs to be dealt with, more politics and that kind of thing, and not necessarily the politics of admin and SysGov. Jacob doesn't need me to do a lot for those politics because those politics grow out of the existing books, and they are profoundly affected by the files, the file books, and I think they're yeah. So, like I say, I think of the file books as Jacob is lead writer on this. I am part of the brainstorming board when we lay out what the book is going to be about, and then I do come through and say, well, what can I find to fix? Well, yeah, well. Oh, look, he misspelled a word. Yeah, okay, I'm good. I got something here, And I got to tell you, when you've been doing this, I sold the first book in 1989. Okay, so I've been doing this for like 34 years. I'm closing on 35 years, and when you find yourself writing with somebody else, you're like, "Hey, I don't have to fix anything." Okay, that's a wonderful feeling, guys. I'm just saying.
Nice. Well, we are getting up close to our last 10 minutes, 9 o'clock. Of course, we can go later if you guys want to continue to talk. There's no real time limit on this. But I did want to ask, since we are getting close to 9 o'clock, obviously the series is continuing since book 6 has just been done and book 5 is not out yet. So what's next for the series? I ask as if I don't already know. Jacob?
Well, the book 5, the Dyson file, comes out in November, and that is it's another police procedural. It stars Detective Isaac Cho and Special Agent Susan Cantrell, and with another crime mystery to solve. And it is my first traditionally published solo novel.
Yep. Yep.
Go Jacob. Go Jacob.
And it is and it is good. Okay.
And it's already up for pre-order, so go do that.
Yes, go do that. Go do that. Yeah, go do that.
All right.
There's also in the mix, I think the next protocol book after the Thermopylae protocol book. Jacob still doesn't get to kill any universes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Technically not.
The occasional galactic collapse. Okay, maybe but not universes. And this is actually the central challenge of that book, not Thermopylae, but the next one. Actually comes from something that Jacob had this wild hair notion about. And I was like, ooh, shiny, a kind of thing. And
what is this, like the cosmic horror one? I can't remember.
No.
Okay,
that's the other one.
That's a different one.
This is those.
So many ideas happen
when those weapons
in our house.
Get deployed and you can't, do anything, kind of thing. It's kind of. All right, let's put it this way. How many people have read Fred Saberhagen's Berserker series? Okay, the Berserkers. Okay, the Berserkers are the Cylons were basically stolen from the Berserkers in the original Battlestar Galactica. I mean, they were. Let's face it. Okay, kind of thing. All right. Well, hey, Berserkers and Cylons got nothing on the little technological faux pas that happens in the war that creates the problem for that book. I mean, trust me, it's kind of like, you did what? It's kind of, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, sir. Well, it probably would be if it wasn't going to kill all of us too. Oh, yeah, damn. You're right. Okay, well, how do you turn it off? Well, see, that's the problem. So it's kind of, it's kind of like, one of the things that I've noticed that Jacob and I are doing in all of the protocol novels. And it wasn't something that we deliberately planned, but it's happening. We are dealing in each of these with a technology that is literally capable of producing extinction level events for not just for planets, for entire universes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've said many times that science fiction is our, we write the fairy tales of a technological society. And one of the functions of fairy tales is to be cautionary. Okay. And so one of the things that we're looking at in these books is technology that seemed like a really good idea at the time, but that, yeah, maybe it wasn't such a great idea later on, they thought, as the universe imploded about them. If you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking about that with, what people are now talking about, okay, where is AI going and everything else. I am not one of the people who is a technophobia kind of person. Okay. I am a person, and I've been around for a while, okay, who worries about rushing to embrace some technologies. And that's one of the things that we actually look at a little bit in the histories that we've assigned to these books. And hopefully we will continue to be smarter than our technology. You notice I said hopefully. That's not something I really prepared to put a lot of money down on. God knows we've made some mistakes in the past embracing technologies or medical therapies. Thalidomide is one that comes to mind. There have been others, and I have there's an internal point of view from Honor Harrington in Uncompromising Honor, and she's thinking to herself that human beings make two things: tools and mistakes. And and that really, what I wrote that without realizing that it actually was a fairly profound statement of how I see humanity. Okay. Now, if we're lucky, we learn from our mistakes, and that's how we advance. Okay. But when you're playing around with the kind of technology we gave these guys, and you make a mistake, it can have some pretty significant consequences.
So, about the future of,
we actually have. I'm going to interrupt you, Jacob, because we have a good question. Yeah.
But right. But I know the question that you're looking at, and
okay.
But I just wanted to say, okay, about the future of the Gordian Division series. So this is actually something that I haven't yet discussed it with David, but I do need to. So I guess, David, this is an informal introduction to this topic. So Heather and I will be seeing Tony Weisskopf at LibertyCon in a week?
Yep,
I'll be there. Yeah.
And one of the things that I would like to do when we're there is present Tony with basically book pitches. And there are 4 Gordian Division pitches I would like to make to her. One is the protocol book that David, you know very well.
Yes.
And there are 3 file pitches that I would like to make to her. And of course, I need to review that with you first.
That would probably be a good idea. in our copious free time between now and then. If you can. Oh, geez. Let me see. What am I going to do here? One of the reasons that, Sharon is not going to be at LibertyCon this year. And the reason she's not going to be at LibertyCon this year is that we've had some health issues. She's really worn out. And that, to be honest, is creating some additional crunch problems for me in terms of time and so forth. And I've still been dealing with some of the consequences of COVID and some other stuff. And so I'm kind of bottlenecking several projects right now. But Jacob, if you can shoot me a synopsis of what you have in mind, I will try my darndest to look at it before LibertyCon.
Mhm.
I doubt that there's going to be anything in there that's going to make me go, oh no, hell no, we can't go there. I don't promise, but it would be very unusual. Now, I will say somebody has, Turbo Turtle has remarked that my image is fuzzy around the edges. That's because it is a virtual background hiding the clutter of my office. And trust me, you should all be grateful for it. Okay, I didn't realize. I thought we were going to be going on. I didn't ask, so it's my fault. But I was assuming Zoom, and my virtual background on Zoom is much less fluttery than this one is, and so I didn't worry about putting up my green screen behind me before we sat down to do this. So it's my bad.
All right, we have 2 questions now.
Yeah.
First one is a very good one, and it's for David, which
Yeah.
is also from Turbo Turtle. Is the Honor Harrington series done?
Yes and no. I'm sure most of you know that I've lost my very dear friend and collaborator, Eric Flint. And he and I knew pretty much exactly where we wanted to go in the next couple of books. At least we knew what we needed to accomplish, and that was usually the starting point for where we went. I can do those books without him, assuming I can find the time to do them without him, but they will not be the same. They will lack something that the Crown of Slaves books all had, and that's Eric. And I just, I can't begin to tell you how much I find myself missing him. But there are, the honor verse is alive and well and will probably be expanding going forward. Honor Harrington herself, there's not a whole lot of dragons left for her to slay. I mean, she's a duchess, she's a steadholder, and what she is right now that she wants to be most of all is a mother. And that's where she's really been headed in a lot of ways from the beginning, even if people didn't recognize it in the Goddess of War, the Salamander, the whole 9 yards. Those kids are really where she was headed the entire time. And she doesn't want to, not, sorry, done. Oh, well, okay, you found the alignment. Okay, fine. One more fleet command, kind of thing. She will be a character in any ongoing novels in her time frame, but it'll be kind of, if you're familiar with Annie McCaffrey's Dragon novels. In the later Dragon Rider novels, Lessa and Flar, who are the very central characters in the first 2 or 3, they're the senior leaders of the Weir. And so they are now in command positions. They are the mentors. They're not out actually fighting the battles. That's really where honor is at this time. Now, among the books that I plan definitely to write will be the story of Alfred Harrington's Marine career. If you've read from the anthology, if you've read Beauty and the Beast, you know that actually Honor is not the most dangerous member of her immediate family. Her father is, and that's one reason why he decided I better be a doctor. I'm too good. He was literally too good at killing people. And this book that I want to write will be the one in which he comes to that conclusion and why he comes to it. So I really want to write that one. Now, in addition, I have a collaborator who will be doing a subset within the Honorverse. In fact, what we'll be writing is Edward Saganami's story. which I think a lot of people have wanted to see in the Honorverse. And the person who will be writing those with me will be Jacob and our friend Tom Pope. And I'm really looking forward to that as well. I do collaborations for a bunch of reasons. Traditionally, I've done them primarily. Okay, I won't do a collaboration unless I expect the final book to be at least as good as either of us would have done alone. Okay, I won't do one just to increase output. Okay, I do books with people I can teach something to or that I can learn something from, and I don't think I've ever done a collaboration in which I didn't learn something along the way. That's certainly been true of the ones I've done with Jacob so far. I am, however, reaching a point in my career where the number of 16-hour days I can put in is lower somehow at 71 than it was at 35. I can't quite figure that out. And there have been some health issues that have slowed me down and whatnot. And there are stories that I want to tell that I don't think I'm going to have the time and the space to tell by myself. And so when that's true, if those stories are in there and they need to get out, what you do is you go out and you recruit someone who you trust as a writer, as a friend, as a person to help you tell those stories. And that's really what Gordian Protocol is in a lot of ways. I had wanted to write these books for 25, 30 years. And I approached Jacob about them in Ruby Tuesdays, I think, on Pelham, one of the many that are no longer there. And I just started saying, "Hey, Jacob, what do you think? I got this project, kind of thing." And he didn't tell me. He did say, "Dave, it's a matter of policy with me. I made this decision years ago. I'm never going to write a time travel novel. Sorry, So that never came up until after we'd done the first draft." And then he said, "Dave,
Oh, I made sure there was a contract signed before I told you that.
Well, the hilarious thing, like, Jacob, you've told me you don't like multiverses either, which is just...
But see, there's only really 2 at a time to worry about here, so we're good. I will say, if I weren't working with Jacob, there probably would be more universes in the Gordian books.
Well, yeah, because he keeps blowing them up.
Well, no, that was not what I was going to say. Although that's probably true. No, but what I'm saying is that I said earlier that the collaborative process is synergistic. And it is. And these books have diverged from what I originally envisioned them being, because that's what good stories do, is they become what they need to be to be a satisfying story. And these books would not be remotely what they are without Jacob being injected into the DNA of the world building before we wrote the first novel. Okay, I mean, there's just no way that they would have been. And I think that as stories, they are far stronger because of that. I really think they are. In terms of following the direction that I had originally envisioned for the universe, we can't go there because of how we have diverged from my original concept of the technology and how it was going to work and everything else. So there's a part of me that's like, oh, geez, it would have been so cool, But anytime that crosses my forebrain, I'm like, yeah, but it's so much cooler where we went instead, kind of thing. You got to make choices. You have to make choices in stories, and you have to be willing to. It's kind of like if you're not willing to pay for the ticket, you can't take the ride. Okay, and paying for the ticket is knowing that you will never get to tell all the stories you wanted to tell.
Yep.
Now I have to say that at 71 that is a more pressing concern than it was at 39. But I always knew that I would never get all the stories that I wanted to tell told. Um, have you read? How many of our viewers have read The Plague Dogs?
I have heard of the Plague Dog.
It's okay. Watership Down.
Oh yeah.
Okay, same author.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about
Both really traumatic animated movies.
Yes. Well, and this is about two dogs who have escaped from an animal experimentation center in England, and they're trying to survive on their own. And it, again, it's anthropomorphized characters. It's very, very touching it's good writing. Okay, but one of the dogs, he's kind of the bigger of the two. He's the protector of the terrier whose brain has been worked on, and who sees visions and whatnot. He doesn't believe in anything except what he can see and what he can fight, and everything. And his comment is that he's going to run until the dark comes down. Okay. And that really, when I read that, I was like, oh man, I understood exactly the image, the concept. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I am on writing. Okay. I'm going to tell stories until the dark comes down. And I hope that when the time comes, and I expect it to come, that I am no longer doing my best work. All right. That I'll be willing to step back, that I'll be willing to sit down with people like Jacob and say, here's the story that I really wanted to tell. Can you help me tell it? All right. It's kind of many, many years ago, right after Fred Saberhagen's death, I was talking to Tony Weisskopf, and I said, they're all gone now. And she said, who? I said, the old guard, they're all gone. Fred, Poul Anderson, Roger Zelazny, the only one left is Jack Williamson. And at that point, he was already older than God, kind of thing. I said, they're all gone. She said, nah, the old guard's fine. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, you're the old guard. I said, nope. I'll be the middle guard, not the old guard. All right, well, I'm damn 70 now, okay? So she won. All right. But one of the things I think that comes with being part of the old guard, of having been around for a while and whatnot, is that you have, I think, a responsibility to look at the field and say, okay, I'm not going to be in it forever. Okay. How can I help to strengthen the bench? How can I pass along things that I've spent 30 years learning? It's kind of like Liam Neeson. I have certain skills, but they end when I end. And so if I can find somebody who is as gifted a storyteller as Jacob, and I can share some of that with him.
No, but was he yelling at me? Sorry.
It's a win-win situation from where I sit. Okay. And I'm not saying like, oh yes, I am this selfless, yes, you may worship at my feet, kind of thing. Oh, you can if you want, but I mean, but the thing is that I think one of the central aspects of my good guy characters is that they take responsibility. Okay. And responsibility comes in a lot of forms. And one of the forms that I think is out there that is incumbent on the senior members of the guild, okay, is to make their experience and their knowledge and their tools available to the newer members of the guild. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't say, and you have to do it like I do it. And to be honest, I think that's harder for a lot of people. The very best editors tell you, like Tony, I've got a problem with what you've done here. Go fix it. Okay, a bad editor says, I have a problem with what you've done here. Here's how I want you to fix it.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tony is one of the best editors out there. And she is, unfortunately, because she is also the publisher now, she cannot be as hands-on as she has been, but she's also been one of my dear friends for 30 years. So I impose shamelessly upon her with my manuscripts. Okay, I mean, it's just, I wanted to teach history. I don't know if it shows in my books, but I wanted to teach history. That's what I thought I was going to do. And
we're glad you changed careers,
yes, we are
David.
very glad you.
A lot of people are glad you changed careers.
I hope so, but I have
to.
Go.
Speaking of people who are glad you changed careers, there's actually a really nice list of comments I'd like to bring up to you guys up in the chat. So the first one comes from Lisa, who says, thank you for honor, David. I reread the series to get me through 2 rounds of chemo and major surgery. I love where she is now. And I am enjoying discovering your books, Jacob.
Yay.
There's also, let's see here, we got a whole bunch of discussion going on here. This is the most active chat we've had in a while. Howard says he really enjoyed his e-arc of the Weltall file, so thank you. And then Michael says, I finished the Weltall file earlier today. I think all the books are great, but it is the best in the series yet. I agree. And let's see here.
It's a good one. It's a very fun read.
It's a good one, but I'll tell you something. In a good series, the last one you read is always the best one.
This is true too.
Okay.
We have 2 questions if you guys are up for it.
Mm-hmm.
The first question, gotta scroll up to find it again. This one comes from Robert, who says, do you ever have hold my beer writing moments together?
Yeah, really, okay. In the sense of hold my beer while I do something really stupid, not so much, okay? But in the hold my beer, I'm going to jump right in here. Yeah, we have those moments, okay? Probably the one that I give Jacob the most grief for, and that worked out to contribute in many ways the most to the story, was the goldfish in the Gordian Protocol. While we were talking about this in public, there are goldfish in the book.
It's an in joke between the 2 of us.
Oh, okay. Yes, I remember now. Yes.
It is the goldfish is Klaus Wilhelm von Schroeder's wife and 3 daughters.
Yes, who I had planned on surviving the book. Okay, I had planned on Klaus thinking they hadn't, and then finding out that they'd been saved, afterwards. And Jacob didn't know that. I hadn't put in the notes, Jacob, do not kill these people. Okay, they said, basically, how do I motivate Klaus von Schroeder to get fully into the fight, and how do I? He loves these people. He can't go. He has to stay and protect them. Well, unless they're dead. So he killed them. And so I'm like, well, crap. So I told Jacob, I said, Jacob, I actually sort of intended these characters to survive. He's like, oh, I can fix it. I said, no, let me play with it a little bit.
Yeah, and then you took the scene and made it even sadder.
Oh, I pulled out all the stops on it, kind of thing. And it really did, because that's the scene that Klaus shares with Shigeki in the Valkyrie Protocol. And it really did. The line in there that is, I think, the most searing is the moment when Klaus is holding his blind, brutally burned, dying wife in his arms, and she fought to the death to protect their daughters, and their daughters are dead, and she doesn't know that because of her wounds, and he's holding her in his arms. And all she can think about is, are the children safe? And he tells her, yes, you saved them. Okay. And then Raybert says, let me have her. I can take her back to my ship. I can put her in the medical unit and we can save her. And Klaus says, can you save her daughters? And Raybert has to say, well, no, it's too late. And Klaus says, then let her go. Okay. And that gave me a handle into his character that I could work with, and that Jacob took and ran with later. Because Jacob is the one who wrote the scene in which Shigeki says to Klaus Wilhelm, what is your problem with me? Okay. And
let me show you.
Yes. And the other thing that happens when he does that is Klaus sees Shigeki's reaction. Okay. And that's the moment in which Klaus really, really recognizes that this is not the Shigeki. Okay. He had it here. But until he sees how Shigeki reacts, until Shigeki says to him, my God, kind of thing, that's the moment at which he really conceptualizes in here that this Shigeki had nothing at all to do with what happened to his family. And that's a real problem for several of the SysGov people. Like, think of Raybert, for example, who is like, all right, listen, they sentenced me to a virtual prison that was a no-return domain. They shredded my body after they forcibly ripped my mind out of it to put it into a computer. They spent the entire last damn book trying to kill me. Okay. No, I don't like the admin. Go figure. He's like, so yeah, he's got certain anger issues that he has to work with here. He's actually doing pretty well in that respect. He hasn't actually shot any of them yet. And he's kind of getting to where Klaus was. I think it's harder for him because it went on longer, kind of thing. But yeah, and those are the things that happen. Those are one of the things that happen synergistically, and that's my buzzword for tonight, synergism.
Synergy.
But it's true, because I had never planned on killing those characters, but their deaths and the way their deaths impacted not just Klaus Wilhelm, but also Benjamin and Raybert, who are standing there. They've been part of this fight. And here's this general, this governor of Ukraine, this George S. Patton with a German accent kind of character, okay, and he's crouched on the floor, holding his dying wife, okay. The supporting characters don't just walk away from that. Okay, that's part of them going forward too, at least in good storytelling, it is. And so that's all kind of wrapped up. That's something that these characters shared, that they can't unshare, and probably assuming that they couldn't magically save her and her daughters, they probably wouldn't want to unshare, because it's so much a part of who they are and what they mean to each other, if you see what I'm saying.
Right. All right, we got one more question, and I think I will cut it off at that because we're already at 9:23, and it's kind of related. It is, how far can the story verge from early development? Or I guess another way of rephrasing it is, were there any other ways in which the story did diverge? Because David, you had mentioned earlier that given the way the series has been written, she's purring in my ear. Given the way that the story has developed, you can no longer end it where you'd initially planned to end it. Where had you initially planned to end it?
Are we talking about the Gordian novels? Or
the Gordian novels.
I had never really planned an end for the Gordian novels.
Oh, were you talking about Honor Harrington when you?
Yeah, I was talking about Honor Harrington.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, what I was saying here is that I can't go in the Gordian novels in the direction that I was originally. There are elements of where I originally wanted to go that I can't go.
There we go.
Okay, and many of those elements would have been much more similar. Oh, I hate that construction. But they would have had a greater affinity for some of the things that I'm doing in the multiverse series with Hell's Gate and so forth. We would have been seeing the development of more, like, for example, uninhabited universes in which humanity didn't evolve as a tool using species, or wiped itself out in the 20th century with bioweapons and you kind of had to start over again. Those kinds of universes. And because of the way that the technology has developed in terms of how universes are created, how we create the spurs of universes, we could still incorporate that we traveled a long way across universes and found one way out here.
Mhm.
And in fact, that's one of the things that the SysGov is doing, is spreading out, looking for other universes that they can now access. But that was going to be a very central focus of where I was initially going to take the books. And it's one reason they were open-ended, because I could always whip up another universe when I needed a story, to tell, to advance the story arc. The way that we are moving now, in some ways, we're more circumscribed because we don't have that kind of freewheeling kind of thing. But the strength of that is that there's much more emphasis on building the universes of SysGov and admin and how they interact, and building their technology and how their technologies interact, than there would have been in my original game plan, where the technology would have been the vehicle by which they got there, not the central crux of what they're dealing with, if you follow me.
Mhm.
And that's Jacob's input as our engineer is largely to blame for, / gets the credit for. And I think it's, in some respects it's both, but I think that on balance, I am very, very satisfied with where we've gone. It's like I said earlier, sometimes you're never going to get to tell all the stories you want to tell. Okay. So what you want is the stories that you do tell to be stories that you're satisfied with.
Mhm.
Okay. And I am totally satisfied with where these books have gone and where I think this whole universe is going forward.
I definitely deserve some blame, David.
Well, okay, fine. Bad Jacob, no biscuit. Okay. I've decided you can't kill a universe in the next book either. Go to your room. Okay.
I'm already in my room.
I remember when our son Michael was about 5 or 6, and our rule of thumb was, if you misbehave, you have to go and do timeout, and you have to be quiet 1 minute for each year you are old before you get out again.
Ooh.
And his room was at the head of the stairs, and he said, I don't want to go to my room. And he's just, yeah. Oh, I have no idea where he got that stubbornness. It must be from his mom. But anyway, so he's carrying, and I came up the stairs and I opened the door and I said, you don't want to sit on your bed? He said, no. I said, good, and closed the door and went away. And he was like, silence for a minute, and then he starts, I don't want to sit on my bed. And so I let him go for a little while. I came and I said, let me explain something to you, Michael. You did something you shouldn't have done. My job is to make you unhappy enough that you never do it again. So if you don't want to sit on your bed, I'm doing my job. And I closed the door and went away. Okay. And there was this dead silence on the other side of the door. And he was like, wait, kind of thing. All right. Now, Jacob, occasionally he'll kill the goldfish. Okay. And you have to say to him, wait. But sometimes killing the goldfish turns out to have been the right thing to do. And I can't off the top of my head, think of a single thing that Jacob has done in one of these books that my response to was, no, we can't go there. Okay. And that, to be honest, is uncommon in a lot of collaborations. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That you had to sit down and say, no, we can't do that, or that doesn't work for me. And sometimes the thing that doesn't work for you, if you're the senior author, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It means that it doesn't work for you, that there's some part of the story telling instinct that is telling you this is not where I need to go in this story.
Mhm.
And Jacob, as far as I can recall, Jacob, we've never had a situation in which I'm saying to you, nah, I don't think so. We've had some where it's like, well, what if we did this instead? But that's one of those striking sparks things. It's not no, we can't do that. Did I ever tell you at any point that there was something that no, we can't do besides killing universes?
Oh yeah. Well, that was you and the
We
publisher.
banned him from giant
both
robots
telling
at one
me,
point too, but then we
hey.
found ways to
Oh yeah,
sneak
yeah,
in.
the giant stompy robot, and then he worked one in anyway. I mean,
Oh,
okay.
have you seen the proof for the mass market of the Janus file? The preview. I don't know who chose the preview, but it's the scene leading up to the introduction of the big stompy robot scene.
Yes,
I just saw that and I was like, yes.
What can I say? Somebody at Bain has a low sense of humor. That's all I can say.
I don't know who they are, but they are now my favorite person at Bain. I saw that and laughed so hard.
Like most of the time, David, when we have a point of discussion, it's, to sort of generalize, do we turn right or left?
Mm-hmm.
And, we kind of look at it and we go back and forth. And I mean, there's been certainly some places where I want to go left and you go right, but there's also, the understanding that, that you are the senior partner, and this is how the working relationship goes. And so if you normally the way I approach is like, hey David, I want to turn left, and then if I'm unable to convince you with that first go, then and you're still feeling let's go right, I'm like, all right, let's go right then. And sometimes they're like, oh okay, left. Left actually doesn't look too bad, but sometimes you're like, and it's also about not being paralyzed by indecision.
Yeah.
It's like we got to pick something if we're going to move forward.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of times when we hit something like that, it's like, okay, well, why do you want to do that? And it's like, okay, this is what I see happening downstream. And I'm like, okay, well, here's what I see happening downstream if we go the other way. And where we wind up going is neither left nor right, but a fusion where we're trying to combine the strong points of both turns. And like the goldfish. Okay, yes. I'd expected them to live. You went ahead and killed them. And I said, okay, wait, we can work with this. Okay. I shouldn't call them goldfish. It's such a tragic scene, but and the guy who kills them is actually, we kind of like him in the later books because it's a different him. He did not understand that he was, but on the other hand, he'd already decided he was going to kill everybody in the entire castle because he had to save his universe. Okay. So that's kind of like, I will say
he went full Terminator.
Oh yeah. He was. Well, also because he'd promised Shigeki he'd keep Jonas alive, and he knew Jonas had just been killed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, and he also, in all fairness to him at that point, and I'm not naming names because but given his mission, given their focus on what they were doing, what he did. If he succeeded, this entire universe wasn't going to exist. Okay, I mean, none of these the place where he was wouldn't exist. The other thing that was kind of cool is in my original visualization of the Gordian Protocol, Shigeki and his guys are like, okay, fine. So the universe is going to end in 10,000 years. There's nothing we can do about it. But I'll be damned if you're going to take away the 10,000 years that my family and their descendants and so forth might have.
Mm-hmm.
In the final draft, there's more of we got 10,000 years to find a solution. Why do we have to rush right in and destroy our entire universe to save these other 14 universes,
mm-hmm.
That we never met? Okay, kind of thing. I think well, no, I'm starting to get into scenes from the book, and they need to read the book if they have it. Besides, you need to stop and go to bed and things like that there.
Yes. Go read the book, everybody.
Yes, that would be
and
good.
All that said, I think this is a good point for us to cut off. So, again, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you, David and Jacob, for being on my little show. And if for those who want to try to win a copy of the Weltall file, again, you can enter your info on the Google form in the event description, or I also just put it in the comments, which will come through on Facebook and YouTube. And again, if you're watching on Twitter, just find the Bain Books Facebook or YouTube. Find the event there, and you'll find all the information there as well. But yeah, do you guys have anything else you want to add? Any cons you're going to be appearing at, stuff like that, before we close out?
I'll be at LibertyCon, DragonCon, Steading Days here in Greenville. It's, actually more like over towards Anderson. 20 Books Las Vegas. That's the rest of me for the year.
LibertyCon and Steading Days, I think. Are we doing any others? I think those are
I think that's it. Well, we're going to be doing MarsCon in January, but that's next year. And
it's next year.
MarsCon, not MarCon. There's two different ones, and one has an S. We're going to be doing the January Virginia one. Yes. So, but yeah, I believe that's all the cons we're going to be at. So, again, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you two for coming. And everybody, go buy the Weltall file. Go buy all the books. So
yes, all of them. Yes. Yes. You can never have too many books.
True. All right. Well, I am going to end us off now. So bye.
Bye.